Yeah, bizarre thing. I'm not even sick. I was telling Emery and Arlie this morning, I sneezed this weekend by larynx. I strained it or something. No, I'm not sick. I sneezed and then pulled a muscle in my throat. Super weird. And it really hurts
Gotta get one camera.
Conjunctivitis.
And let's go. Why are you going dead? Cool. And let's go. I got we know now.
Nice.
Cool. And do now. Or you can stand for school. I have step practice.
Yo!
Do now.
Go. Go. Excuse me. What? Very nice of them. What? Can I dab?
Now I want to sit on the back. I don't like being here.
I think it's a quick right now.
Hey, Cameron. How are you? I'm Brian, and I shall be your next president.
Yeah.
Everyone has a handout.
Oh, there's a handout. What? Oh.
It's not your mission, man.
Do now. Silent solo. 6 minutes. Let's go. 6 is too long. 5 minutes. Annotating and answering the question.
Of what?
I didn't want to call.
I know, you're right. What? So what's a rhetorical situation? Good job.
How? Cut yourself on what? Hey, what does A do more effectively than B? Half of you are, some of you have the right answers, some of you do not. Turn and talk with a partner 1 minute. Challenge. Okay, up front, 3, 2, 1. Who's right? Who's wrong? And then there's like one like in between answer. What does A do more effectively than B? Cameron, what did you think?
A gave a lot more background information and context, like for the two different parts of the rhetorical situation. And example A doesn't really list the rhetorical devices, but it elaborates more on them than example B does.
Okay, very good. That is the like partially right answer. So that's good. What can you annotate for me? What did you have circled in A that were context details of context details? Something. Say something about context. Go.
Example A says that Banneker was son of former slaves and leveraged on his current, or in that time, current status. Like he's an author, astronomer, mathematician, farmer. And then he says Jefferson was the framer of the Constitution and writer of the Declaration.
Okay. So partially what your, half of your answer that you framed as context is actually about audience. So pause there. Not looking at the Thomas Jefferson detail, but the context detail. Giving information about Banneker, the author. But in B, it does say, what does B say about Banneker, the author? Brian.
He's highly educated and his parents were slaves.
Yeah. It's not like it's giving you nothing. But I would give this a C and this probably a C+, like your grades. Jaquan.
I said A is more specific and it explains the audience and the purpose.
That's the right answer. Well, half of it is the right answer. Let's look at which one, the right answer or the not right answer? Let's look at the right answer. A is more specific, like Jaquan said, in terms of audience. What other lines in A? We already underlined one that Cameron gave us, so maybe Cameron was more right. What other sentence in A gives you more details about audience? Nija.
When it says that Jefferson, who values liberty, but is unsure what to do about slavery in America.
If that sentence is not underlined, underline it and star it. Okay. Versus, so this is audience in A. We had the speaker, we have some context. Where in B does B specifically explain and define the audience? Chantel?
When you first target Thomas Jefferson as his father
If I gave this an A, what grade would you give this?
Let's see.
Minus?
Why? Randy, pause. Don't shut out. Randy, why?
It's not telling us who
Good. What else is B lacking in terms of audience? What's another way to say that? Jermaine?
No, I wanted to clarify what Randy said, 'cause I didn't hear.
Oh, that's fair. Clarify your point.
So, Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration for Independence for business and governments, and Banneker is targeting whoever is following after.
Charlie?
Not really that, but B like starts listing the different strategies used, and in the last sentence specifically goes on to say that use logo to appeal to more groups.
Yeah. So do you think B is so? Which was stronger in terms of that part? Maybe. I think so. Now back to Jaquan's original answer about audience and purpose. Do both adequately explain purpose? Do both adequately explain purpose?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, Jaquan. Why?
Answer the question?
Yes.
Gonna be like to give you the lines where they.
Yes.
All right. So the last line in A said, in doing so, Banneker is appealing to Jefferson's sense of logical and moral beliefs to argue against slavery.
Okay. There's purpose.
And C,
Where else does A do it? A has it in another place too. Where's the purpose?
Me?
Yeah.
Banneker offers illusions and comparisons concerning. No, not that one. He wrote a letter to him in order to persuade
Yes.
Jefferson who values. Yeah.
So argue against slavery. And where does B also do purpose well? Because it does. Ricardo.
He says Thomas Jefferson in order to combat slavery.
Yes. You have it there, you have it in one more place. Randy.
The last line where it's like, in order to convince Thomas Jefferson's
One more.
I'm missing one? Yes, I am, Tanaja.
Argue effectively against it.
Yes. And this is the key point, the key takeaway. Okay? Yes, there are more details in context. However, the real example, the real difference between A and B is the specificity of audience and the audience's values. An idea we're talking about today. Write this down if you didn't have that specific answer. Yes, ma'am.
Did you give B a C minus because towards the end where like states what he was using? Because you know, like you said, like you didn't want us to like specifically say, like you see what I'm talking about, like radical strategies and emotional.
In B?
Yeah.
How
did you grade it?
Okay.
I don't think it should be a C minus.
I don't think so either. That's why I thought you.
No, the C minus, let me clarify, the C minus was only in terms of its discussion of audience.
Oh,
And that was the key takeaway, and thank you for clarifying. B, if B had the details of A, merely in terms of audience, if you left everything else the same, but you just added in those details of Jefferson that were not here, these would have the same exact score.
So overall, what would it get? Like a B, B minus, B plus?
Yeah,
Don't think in terms of letter grades, think in terms of the rubric numbers.
Okay, what was your
They would both be 8s.
Oh.
But right now, this is a 5 and this is an 8.
Oh.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, I need a minute to shuffle things. Copy down the homework and do this for me. While I'm shuffling things, turn in your homework. Pass it to the front and then pass it to the front. What?
Ms. Herchenroether,
Yes, ma'am.
may I have the papers that were for the homework last
You know
night?
what? Okay.
No time.
Ms. Herchenroether,
We didn't do the last one.
Could I get the papers?
Yes.
Pictures.
Oh, my computer went to sleep. That's not okay.
We gotta do a paragraph for segment.
Is it office hours today?
Yes.
Can I come to yours?
No, it's not.
No, after school.
Huh?
Office hours in school are Tuesday, Thursday.
Oh, all right.
After
So
school is
sign
today,
me
Friday.
up tomorrow. Okay, sign me up tomorrow for yours.
You sign yourself up during pack time.
Where I go to my
Ms. Tan will share a file with you. Or reshare. Homework.
I was like,
Yes. Okay. Announcements and then today's lesson. First announcements. Homework due Thursday is the next set of pages from the things they carried, 26 to 58. That's it. You'll have a dirt quiz. If you were absent last Friday, today is the only day to make up your quiz.
See, that was me.
So that I can give them back. Either make it up during lunch, go get your food, get a quiz for me, go to the media center, make it up, or stay after school if you can't. If you can't stay after school, do the lunch thing. Tomorrow, is anyone doing to be or not to be? Me. 2, 3. Do you actually have it memorized? You don't get partial credit for saying the first line.
What if I say that half? What if I say like the first half?
No. All or nothing. 2? Okay, I'm excited.
Wait, question.
What?
Are we gonna do it during class or?
Yes. Okay. So now, how should I do this? Do I want to pass back your quizzes now, or do I want to do notes now?
Yes.
Pass back the quiz, cause I got 7 out of 10.
I served 2.
I just want to
Oh, I
know.
don't know. Look. Oh, they put the
The last question.
Wait, no, I got it. I'm
Can I
trying
go to the
to
bathroom?
because I've been on my mind. I've been on my mind. I've been on my mind.
I'm probably gonna like an A.
No. You hear that?
You got one? Well, I think I'm gonna go.
Oh, go pass this up.
You told me you told me something about the dirt.
Carter.
She said
Tiny, pass it to Tiny.
Oh, I didn't want to. Whoa.
doesn't know that. What is that? Oh, she wrote one.
Pass that
I don't know what I'm I was sick. What you got on my paper? What you got on my paper? I can't. What is it on my paper?
Good job, Cameron. I get a 4 out of 5.
chocolate?
Oh, you dirty.
It's
on my paper.
What she said. Okay.
She said, what she said?
All right, batch feedback on the quiz. I need all eyes. Okay, a couple of details. 1. Dry erase marker, look at my arm. 1. I did not write the quiz. If I had written the quiz, I would have edited it in a couple of different ways. 1. And all of you did this. You just came off of the Banneker quiz, or Banneker IA rather, in which you saw sir, 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 sir. And I told you if you see a rhetorical technique like repetition that carries throughout a passage, you can and should write about it. Then you get this quiz, which has Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker. It looks exactly the same. However, the use of this repetition is actually insignificant to the passage as a whole. When you're addressing the House of Representatives and giving a speech, it's kind of just like this verbal tick that doesn't have any real significance that representatives use. It's kind of like saying It's a way for you to just frame your thoughts and catch your breath and keep up with yourself if you're speaking extemporaneously. So if you wrote about it in terms of it building a relationship, I didn't take off points, but you should just know it actually wasn't significant to the passage as a whole. Okay, the other point I would have taken out is, at the top where it says it's also being televised by C-SPAN. That isn't important because while C-SPAN is a not T, I mean not T, double T. I meant that T, not double T. While it was televised, nobody watches C-SPAN.
How would I know that?
And you wouldn't, so I just wouldn't have given you that detail. It was kind of abstract. Geraldine.
How would you know that if the repetition of like speakers is replicated? If, like,
That's the thing. This is like the exception to the rule. They shouldn't have given you the exception to the rule while you're still learning the rule. I know, and everyone wrote a paragraph about it. It's okay. So, today in your scores. When I was reading and grading these, aside from those two details, I noticed I was writing practically the same exact feedback on every single essay I read, and that was this. Be more specific in connecting to audience. Everyone has that comment somewhere. But when everyone has that comment, it's actually assigned to me that I didn't do something well. So I am now going over a new strategy so that we can be more specific in our connections to audience to raise our scores. Because a lot of you, like, it was really easy to get 5s. Like, you guys did a very good job. But to move over that 5 hurdle, you have to be more specific. So today's strategy is how you be more specific in terms of audience. Does that make sense? Chantel.
So 2 things. One, I don't have any comments online.
What's that?
Like, you almost gave me a high score. Well, no, I did get a high score, but like, wow, you're giving me a higher one.
Because you didn't do this. Yes. This is what we're doing today. Notes. If it's on the board, it's in your notebook. DeAndre, you something to like. I know. You can't participate. You can't just sit there. Notes. I gave you space on your handout in the do now, or if you know you're going to lose that, put it in your notebook. But notes.
What's VIP?
Yes.
So that interest we got
Okay. Pens are moving, mouths are not. Connecting to audience. Okay, if you apply this strategy to your essays, guaranteed you would move your rubric score up one whole point. Step 1 in being more specific to your audience is 1, to first accurately identify it and define it from the prompt itself. Some of us made the following mistakes. Identifying audience as President Bush. Not many people did that, but some people did. We're focusing only on the American people. If you have a letter on the exam, you're first crossing your fingers that you get a letter, because the audience is never more clear than it is in a letter. One author, one audience, that's it. No room for gray area. Letter is literally the to or dear. If, however, you get a speech, you should focus your analysis not on the implied or broad audience, but focus your analysis on the direct audience, which in this case was the House of Reps. It's not to say you can't write about the American people or the implied audience, but your focus, your majority of your analysis should be on that direct audience right in front of the speaker. Now the next curveball that does happen, and is what we're looking at in the next unit, is instead when you don't have a letter or a speech, but you have a passage from a magazine. That's what we're going to be thinking about. We're not worrying about that for right now. You with me? All right, step 2 is VIP, which is what we're learning on the next slide. Questions?
I got a question.
Yes, sir. Thanks. All right. Audience is a VIP. This is our frame. This is our acronym. And you're going to do this in a couple of very specific places in your essay. VIP is an acronym to help you think of different ways to analyze audience more specifically, so you can connect to audience more specifically in your essays. You're going to do it both in your introduction paragraph, like student A does. You're also going to do it in your body paragraphs. So first is B, values. This is the one you have to do. You have to name who, no, after you name who the audience is, you have to name what does the audience care about? What is it interested in? What literally does it value? And you have to identify that in the introduction. Other ideas that may or may not apply depending on the passage. These are optional. Is identity first. Does the audience's race or gender or potentially socioeconomic position factor in? Does it matter in any way? If you think about Thomas Jefferson writing to Banneker, I'm sorry, I flipped that. Banneker writing to Thomas Jefferson. Black man writing to white man about slavery. Jefferson's race potentially is an important part of his argument. Something he should factor in. And last one that is optional depending on the passage is the position. What is the audience's role, rank, or job, quite literally? And does that factor in? Questions?
Yeah.
Geraldine.
Does that have duration or?
What?
The first one? On top
What does the audience care about? What is it interested in?
No, like what you wrote on the slide.
Mandatory. You have to write out values. It's mandatory. Optional if they apply. Okay? So for Banneker, I'm thinking aloud. For Banneker, ladies in the corner. For Banneker, he valued freedom. He valued the importance of his legacy. Because he was the Declaration of the Independence, the framers of the Constitution valued and cared a great deal about their legacy. He valued freedom. His identity for Thomas Jefferson. He was a white man, not just a white man, he owned slaves. How did that factor in? How could he connect to that? And Jefferson's position as the framer of the as one of the framers of the Constitution, as the writer of the Declaration of Independence, that was his job. How could he connect to those points? That's what you would say for Jefferson. Now, applying that same thinking to the House of Representatives. Okay? Listen to the directions because they're not written out. With your partner, 2 minutes to brainstorm VIP characteristics for the House of Representatives. I just modeled it for Jefferson. You have to brainstorm with your partner what the VIP breakdown for the House of Representatives would be. 2 minutes with a partner, shoulder partner. Let's go.
We got
Everything.
mannequins be saying
That's what she said. So
They could like, just so you know, one time I went to a store. When I first walked in, there was one of the guys like this. And I walked out, he was like his hand was up. I'm like, oh no.
I had to write down. Then he said always to the security.
Stop, you can't laugh. What?
I know, but too funny. Like,
5, 6, 7, 8 minutes.
Great. Thank you for hosting.
This is
They care about
6, 7, 8.
Write that down. Write something down. Be smart. What do they care about? Your intro was good. What does House Representatives care about? What do they value? Write that down. Yes, this is, yes. Use all that knowledge. Write something down.
He's the one giving this. So it's not that the house got disagreement. It's that they're debating between it.
Okay, I heard.
He's interested in his side of it.
Hey, Bucky.
Go.
He himself is not the audience. The audience is
He was finishing his point. I heard that he was on task. We're letting him finish his thought. He's enthusiastic.
unlike you.
Okay, scholars, back up front. What are some of the House of Representatives' values? Now, are you going to put that away now? What are some of its values, Tiana?
The people.
Yeah, can you elaborate what you mean? You're right. Yes, you can. What people? Can you be more specific then? Which people? The people, they... Are you going to play along, or are you done?
The people they... Come on, you guys.
You said care about. Yeah, I definitely just said that.
The people, they... Who can fill in the blank hands? Don't shut up. Don't shut up.
You said that already.
Yes.
That was not
Do you know the technical, that has a name, don't shout out. Does anyone know the name? That has a formal definition.
What?
What I just wrote on the board. The people you represent. Starts with a C.
Common.
Cameron.
Constituent.
Very good, Cam.
Good word.
What else do they value? Hands. What else do they value? Raise your hands. Jaquan, what do you mean by that? Elaborate.
They want like the laws that the people want.
Why?
Because it's what the people want. They represent the people.
And what are they also concerned about? Hands. Brian. Okay, that's a different idea, but a good idea. We should be adding to our papers. If you don't have this, I'll just do some thinking out loud since we are blank, ladies in the corner. People safety, I would also add national security. That is part of their, you could also put that down as their job. Okay? They also probably care about and value their own jobs. They should care about getting re-elected. The House of Representatives only have a 2-year term. Their jobs are literally up for grabs every 2 years. They answer to the people much more directly than other representatives. Okay? What about, now here's the curveball, and I'm kind of giving you the answer in the framing of my question. Does identity matter for this audience? Hands? No. Thank you for shouting out. How about you explain why then, and don't shut up.
Because.
Why doesn't identity matter for the House of Representatives? Raise your hand. Stretch your tricep. Everyone's spacey. Maybe we want to be focused. Geraldine.
Because they don't have one specific one. It's made up of,
Louder.
it's made up of different factors.
Yeah. There are literally over 450 reps.
What is not?
It's not applicable. Nah.
Nah.
No, don't do that. It's a very diverse, it's not a very diverse group, but it's a pretty diverse group. Yes, it's mostly male, yes, it's mostly white, but because there's so many of them, it's actually more diverse, and there's more opinions. Position, though, does matter a great deal. Can anyone tell me specifically what is the role of the House of Representatives? What powers do they have that others do not? Raise your hand, stop shouting out, Jaquan. Brian. So what is that called? They have control over the what? Starts with a B. You wrote that down? They also have, similarly, that you're all referencing from your civics knowledge, they have
Oh my God, Father's Day. That's crazy. No. I was about to say that.
only the House of Representatives can authorize war. Okay, so now, using these details, everyone get out your introduction paragraph. Yeah. Turn to your introduction paragraph.
I forgot to address the audience in my introduction.
Okay. Okay, step one in revising your essays. Need all eyes because the directions are not written out. Tiny. Step one, in your introduction paragraphs, you're going to look at your introduction paragraph, then look at student A. First, you have to make sure you didn't make a mistake in terms of identifying audience. So if you said the audience was President Bush, or if you said the audience was only the American people, you need to first correct it. The audience is the House of Representatives. After you've ensured that your audience is correctly identified, you literally need to add in a line, just like student A does, where you name the value.
No, that's not a phone, it's a calculator.
You don't need to shut out and interrupt my moment. Just like student A says, Thomas Jefferson, comma, who values liberty. You need to add in a positive phrase, scholars. You need to add in a descriptive phrase where you name the value. In the margins, or on a separate piece of paper, if you're a little OCD, but in the margins, you need to say, I need to literally see, comma, who values, and then name one of these that you know you could discuss. Does that make sense? 2 minutes silent solo, fixing your introduction paragraph for audience. Let's go.
Recorder? You were at the end of it. That's it. Like speaker instead of like
Right. You said it has to. Cheyenne has something to do. Don't distract her. She's taking this right. Yes. 1.5 minutes. Word choice. That don't set that idea just sounds not as sophisticated. I'm saying it's not as sophisticated. It's not college. It would be detrimental. It would be harmful.
it would be positive and it would be beneficial. You just need to use different English. You didn't own an audience of metro. So if you don't have those services, but you also need to say pieces of you have very little work to do. Good. So that's what you're going to be writing on. Good. That's all you have to do.
That's my favorite line. That's my favorite line.
Oh, I thought you were
She said, who? I said, okay. We gotta get it.